The automatic doors of Ridgeway Mall slid open, and a cold draft of recycled air hit Callum square in the face. He stopped just inside the entrance. Old habit. Navy SEAL reflex. Scan the space before you move into it. 2 exits on the left. 1 stairwell at the far end. Skylights above letting in the flat gray light of a November afternoon in Edmonton. Crowds moderate. Noise level high but not alarming. Beside him, Kodiak sat. The German shepherd's ears moved independently of each other, catching frequencies Callum couldn't hear. Kodiak was 90 pounds of muscle and precision, black and tan, with a scar across his left shoulder from a training exercise in Kandahar that had gone sideways in ways no one liked to talk about. He wore a bright orange vest, printed clearly on both sides. Military working dog. Do not pet. Callum had 14 days of leave. He hadn't asked for them. His CO had practically ordered him to take a break. Use the time, get out of the barracks. Your wound so tight you're starting to affect the team's breathing, Callum. That's what she'd said, word for word. So here he was, Edmonton. His sister Fiona lived here with her 2 kids and her husband, who sold insurance and watched hockey and had never once in his life had to decide who lived and who didn't. Callum loved Fiona. He didn't always know how to be in the same room as her. He'd promised to pick up a birthday gift for her youngest, something from the toy store on the 2nd level. 45 minutes, in and out, back to her place for dinner. Kodiak padded beside him, unhurried, reading the crowd the same way Callum did. They moved through the atrium toward the elevator. Callum noticed a few people step back when they saw Kodiak. He was used to that. He was also used to the other reaction, the one where parents pointed and children's faces lit up and someone inevitably said, "Can I pet him?" He'd smile and say no and explain why, and they'd nod and still be a little disappointed. And that was fine too. What he was not used to was the hand on his arm. "Sir." Callum stopped, turned slowly. The security guard was younger than he looked at first, maybe 25, wearing a uniform that was just a little too big in the shoulders, holding a radio like it gave him weight. His name tag said Derek. He stood with his chin up in the way people do when they're performing authority rather than carrying it naturally. "You can't bring that animal in here." Callum looked at Kodiak. Looked back at Derek. "He's a certified military working dog," Callum said. He kept his voice level, always level. "He's got documentation if you need to see it. Mall policy is no animals." Derek said it quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. "Service animals for the disabled are the exception. That," he nodded toward Kodiak, "is not a service animal. He's a military working dog. There's a difference in classification, but the access rights are, sir, I don't make the rules. I just enforce them." Derek held his radio tighter. "You're going to have to take the dog outside." A few shoppers slowed their pace. A woman near a kiosk selling phone cases pretended to look at phone cases. A teenage boy flat out stopped and watched. Callum noticed all of them. He kept his breathing even. This is not a hostile situation, he told himself. This is a young man doing a job he doesn't fully understand. Stay level. "Can I speak with your supervisor?" Callum asked. Something shifted in Derek's posture. Not softened, something else. Like the question had irritated him. "My supervisor's going to tell you the same thing I'm telling you." "Maybe," Callum said. "I'd still like to talk to them." Derek pressed his radio. A brief crackle. He said a few words into it. Callum caught assistance and level 1 and dog situation, and then they waited. Kodiak sat, perfectly still. His dark eyes moved through the space without urgency. The woman came quickly. Her name tag said Vivian Cho, Operations Manager. She was in her 50s, compact, moving with the brisk energy of someone who handled 12 problems before lunch every single day and had opinions about all of them. She took in the situation in about 3 seconds flat. "What's happening here?" she asked, looking at Derek. "Animal in the mall," Derek said. "I asked him to leave." Vivian looked at Callum, then at Kodiak. She read the vest. "He's military," Callum said. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and produced a laminated card. He held it out. "So am I. Navy SEAL, currently on leave." Kodiak is a certified military working dog, active duty, operational. I have documentation of his status. Canadian Kennel Club certification, DND registry number, and a letter from my commanding officer if you need it. Vivian took the card. She read it carefully. She was not someone who performed reading. She actually read. Derek leaned in to look at the card from the side. Still a dog, he muttered, not quite under his breath. Callum heard it. He didn't react to it. The trick his old Master Chief had taught him. If you react to every provocation, you're giving someone else control of your body. Don't. Vivian handed the card back. Our policy, she said, and she said it carefully, like she was picking the words, technically applies to domestic pets, not to working animals of this classification. She looked at Derek. He can stay. Derek's jaw tightened. I was following. I know what you were following, Vivian said. It's fine. I'll handle this. A beat passed. Derek looked at Callum with an that wasn't quite a glare. Something smaller than that. Something that wanted to be a glare but didn't have the conviction to go all the way. He walked away. Callum thanked Vivian. She nodded, said she was sorry for the trouble, and went back the way she came. There are moments where the world gives you a small injustice, and then a small repair, and the sensible thing is to accept the repair and move on. Callum knew this. He'd done it enough times to know it. He rode the elevator up to the second level. Kodiak sat beside him, watching the doors. They found a toy store. It was cheerful and loud with primary colors, and a children's song playing from somewhere Callum couldn't identify. He stood in the aisle for the 7 to 9 age bracket and looked at the option. He had no idea what Fiona's daughter was currently obsessed with. He texted Fiona. She sent back 3 emojis and then a voice note that was mostly her laughing and saying, "Just get her anything with horses." Callum spent 8 minutes finding a horse-themed building set that seemed age-appropriate. He was calculating the square footage of the box versus the shelf space available in a 7-year-old's bedroom, because that's the kind of thing his brain did when it had nothing more pressing to compute, when he noticed Kodiak. Kodiak had stopped. They were near the back of the store, close to the fire exit and a narrow corridor that led to the mall's maintenance access. Kodiak was standing very still, head low, nose pointed at the wall to their left, not growling. Kodiak almost never growled unless Callum needed him to, but his posture had changed. The difference between a working dog on alert and a working dog at rest is subtle enough that most people would miss it. Callum didn't miss it. He put the box down on the shelf. Kodiak, show me. The dog moved. Slowly, deliberately, toward the corridor beside the fire exit. He stopped just inside the entrance to it. Sat. Looked at Callum. This was an indication. This was what a year of operational deployment together had built. Not tricks, not performance, but language. Kodiak was saying, "Here. Something is here." Callum looked down the corridor. Dim fluorescent light. Concrete floor. A trolley stacked with flattened cardboard boxes. A mop bucket with a broken wheel. And, tucked behind the trolley, partially obscured, a bag. A backpack. Black canvas. No identifying marks. Sitting alone in a maintenance corridor behind a children's toy store at 11:30 on a Saturday morning. Callum's breathing slowed. This was not anxiety. This was the opposite of anxiety. This was his brain going quiet and clear the way it did when the situation required everything he had. He stepped back into the store. Calmly. He approached the teenager at the cash register. "I need you to call mall security and tell them there's an unattended bag in the maintenance corridor outside your fire exit," Callum said. He said it quietly. The way you say things, when you don't want 12 people to hear you say it, but you need the person in front of you to understand that you are absolutely serious. Do it now. Don't make an announcement over the store speakers. The teenager, a girl with purple streaks in her hair and earbuds around her neck, looked at him. Then at Kodiak. "Is it? Call security," Callum said. "Right now, please," she called. Callum went back to the corridor entrance. He didn't go closer to the bag. He positioned himself so he could see it without approaching it, and he waited. Kodiak sat beside him, steady as stone. The security response took 4 minutes. The first to arrive was Derek. Callum recognized him immediately. Derek recognized Callum. Something moved across Derek's face. Surprise. Then something that curdled into the kind of professional suspicion that sometimes grows in people when they've already decided who they're dealing with. "You again," Derek said. "There's an unattended bag," Callum said. He pointed without moving closer to it. "My dog indicated on it. He's trained in explosive detection. I'm not telling you what it is, I'm telling you what he did. You need to get your security team here, and you need to start moving people away from this area of the mall." Derek looked at the bag. He looked at Kodiak. "Your dog indicated," Derek repeated. Flat. Like he was repeating something absurd. "Yes, your dog indicated." Callum kept his voice level. "He's a certified military working dog with explosive detection training. His indication is not conclusive, but it is not something to ignore. You need to evacuate this section and call the Edmonton Police Service bomb unit." Derek straightened up to his full height. "Sir, you've already caused a disruption in this mall once today." "I understand that," Callum said. "I'm asking you to set that aside for now. If I'm wrong, nothing bad happens and you can throw me out yourself. If I'm right and you ignore it, we're having a very different conversation later." Derek looked at the bag again. He was young and he was uncertain, and he'd already made one call today that his manager had overridden. And Callum could see all of that moving across his face like weather. Then Vivian arrived. She'd come quickly, which meant the teenager at the cash register had said something that triggered a higher-level alert. She looked at the bag. She looked at Callum. She looked at Kodiak. "He indicated?" she asked. "Yes," Callum said. She didn't hesitate. She pulled her radio off her belt and spoke clearly into it. "This is Vivian Chow, Ops Manager. I need a full evacuation of Level 2, East Wing, effective immediately. I need security at Maintenance Corridor 4. And someone get me EPS on the line." Derek stared at her. "Go," she said to him. "West stairwell. Start moving people." He went. What happened in the next 20 minutes was not dramatic in the way people imagine emergency response to be dramatic. It was procedural. It was a series of competent people arriving and doing specific things in a specific order. Callum knew this rhythm. He'd lived in this rhythm. He answered questions from the first EPS officer, provided his D&D credentials, described exactly what Kodiak had done, and the timeline of events. He stayed calm because calm was useful. He stayed out of the way because being out of the way was useful. There are people who run toward danger and people who run away from it, and most people are the second kind. Not from cowardice, but because they were never taught what to do when danger is standing very still in a maintenance corridor and looking at you with canvas and zippers. The bomb disposal team arrived from the Edmonton Police Service in 16 minutes. They were professionals, and they moved like it. Callum watched from the evacuation perimeter across the mall's east parking lot, standing with Kodiak in the cold November air, his jacket open because he'd been moving fast and hadn't noticed the temperature yet. A woman in her 60s stood near him. She had 2 grandchildren with her, a boy of maybe 8 and a girl younger than that, both in winter coats, both confused and not quite scared yet, reading the situation through the adults around them. The woman looked at Kodiak, then at Callum. "Is it real?" she asked, quietly. So the kids wouldn't catch the question. Callum looked at her. "I don't know yet," he said. That was true. She nodded. She took both children's hands. 40 minutes later, the EPS officer who'd taken Callum's statement found him still at the perimeter. "It was real," the officer said. He said it carefully, the way people say things they're still metabolizing. "ID'd. Rudimentary but viable. Our team rendered it safe." He looked at Kodiak. "How long did you say he's been doing detection work?" "Operational deployment, 6 years, Callum said. "He's been with me for 4. The officer nodded slowly. "Your dog saved lives today. I want you to know that. That device, in that corridor, at 11:30 on a Saturday, the blast radius would have reached into the store. Callum looked at Kodiak. Kodiak looked back at him with the patient, uncomplicated expression of an animal that has done what he was built to do, and is ready to do it again if asked. There are no words for what passes between a handler and a working dog in a moment like that. The bond is not sentiment. It is something older and more precise, built from shared danger and mutual trust, and the particular kind of respect that grows when two beings have depended on each other in conditions that would break most partnerships. Callum put his hand on Kodiak's shoulder. The dog leaned into it slightly. That was all. Derek found him 20 minutes later. The evacuation had lifted for most of the mall's west side, and the Christmas decorations still played their quiet music somewhere above the police tape. Callum was sitting on a bench near the east entrance, filling out a statement form. Kodiak was lying at his feet. Derek stood in front of him. He wasn't in the same posture as earlier. The chin wasn't up. He held his radio at his side. "I wanted to," he stopped. "Start it again. I owe you an apology." Callum looked up from the form. "I was wrong," Derek said, "about the dog, about the bag, about this morning, too." He said the last part like it cost him something to say it. "I made assumptions and I acted on them before I had the full picture. That was on me." Callum studied him for a moment. Derek was young. He'd had a bad morning and then a terrifying afternoon, and he was standing here saying the right thing, which not everyone does. "Appreciated," Callum said, and he meant it. Derek gave a short nod. He looked at Kodiak once more. "Differently now. The way you look at something when your understanding of it has changed." And then he walked away. Callum finished the statement form. He folded it. He thought about Fiona's daughter and the horse-themed building set he'd left on the shelf. He thought about dinner, and the husband who sold insurance, and the easy comfort of people who lived lives that didn't require them to scan exits. He thought about Kodiak, about 6 years of operational work, 4 of them together, about the number of times he'd watched this dog do something that no amount of human experience could have matched, about the simple, staggering reliability of it. He stood up, stretched, looked down. "Good boy," he said. Kodiak's tail moved once, twice. Callum clipped his jacket closed against the cold, tucked the statement form under his arm, and walked back toward the mall entrance. He still needed to find a birthday present. The afternoon was not over. He stopped at the automatic doors, looked at Kodiak. "Same plan," he said. "In and out." Kodiak sat beside him and waited. The doors opened. They went in. Vivian Chow's statement to the Edmonton Journal the following day was brief. She said that a combination of factors had led to the safe resolution of the incident, and that the mall's security team had responded appropriately. When the reporter pressed her on the role of the military working dog, she paused. "He found it," she said. "That dog found it when no one else knew to look." She didn't elaborate. She didn't need to. The reporter later tracked down Derek for a comment. He said he'd rather not be quoted. Then he said, "I learned something that day. I think that's all I want to say." And somewhere north of the city, Callum sat at Fiona's kitchen table, while 2 children assembled a horse-themed building set on the floor around him. Pieces going in every direction, instructions ignored. Kodiak lay near the radiator, his eyes half closed, warm. Fiona set a mug of coffee down in front of Callum without being asked. I wrapped both hands around it. Outside, Edmonton pulled its gray November sky down close. Inside, the children argued cheerfully about which piece went where, and nobody was in any particular danger, and the radiator made its small, steady sound. "This is what it looks like," the narrator would tell you, "when the weight is set down for an evening. Not abandoned, not forgotten, just set down. The man who carries it gets to sit at a kitchen table and drink coffee that someone made for him without asking, and the dog gets to be warm, and the city gets to not know what almost happened inside one of its shopping malls on an ordinary Saturday in November. That's what they gave back. The man and the dog. A day that didn't end badly. That's enough. That's everything.